運が悪かったんだよ、お前らは。
残念だったな、シンジとレイナは。
Yeah, Kiryu's having a rough day.
ここ以外に頼れるところがなかったんだ。
分かってる。できる限り手厚く葬ろう。
ああ、すまん。
Put them in a graveyard so I can have a flashback and reminisce about them in the next game.
明美？
そうだ、シンジは確かにそう言っていた。
しかしそんな名前の女いくらでもいるぞ。それだけじゃな。
いや、そうでもねえ。
あ？
錦山組の田中の頭は実は風俗好きでな。知ってたか、桐生。
まあな。
Sorta.
ここ何年か奴が通ってる店がある。桃源郷ってソープだ。
A
そこ
soapland.
のナンバーワンが確か明美。
なるほどな。
ただしだ、そこは普通の店じゃない。ビル一軒丸々ソープになってるが、看板もねえし、パッと見じゃそれとわからねえ。しかも一回遊ぶのに100万はかかる。
100万？
現役のタレントやらモデルやらが働いているんだ。選ばれた人間の遊び場さ。
おじさん、ソープって何？
その、まあ。
Well, I explained what a soapland is in one of the early videos.
銭湯ってこと？
So,
いや、
you're covered.
それとも少し違って、その。
おじさんは行ったことあるの？
まあ、いや、
嘘。私どんなとこか知ってるよ。何日も歩いてたんだから。
Haruka, what a troll!
こりゃ一本取られた。
What a troll, this kid. And yet, they did a joke earlier where she didn't know what an adult toy store meant.
桃源郷に入るには桃源郷の会員証が必要なんだ。そうだ、新明という女が桃源郷で昔働いていた。今はピンク通りの社員とかいうキャバクラで働いてるはずだ。新明に会えば早く手に入るかもな。
Go to a hostess club. Oh god, no! Please, not again.
金の不良はいろんな格好のやつがいるな。
ああ、カラーギャングにチーマー、不良も派閥争いしてて、服装もそれぞれで違うんだ。
単乱派と長乱派みたいなもんか。
全然ちげえよ。つうか、例えが古いぞ。
Old
伊
ass
達さんはどっち
man.
派だったんだ。
バカ、お前そりゃ俺はブレザーだ。
Yeah, so as previously discussed, Haruka is not written as a child character. So yeah, Shinji's dead. It's sad, but I mean, honestly, I'd be lying if I said the game did the best job at establishing Shinji as Kiryu's sidekick. You know? I mean, like, to be fair, the, you know, list of characters who are aligned with Kiryu and on his side in this game is pretty small. Like, there's Date, who he's kind of like equal partners with. There's Reina, who was an informant and like double agent kind of a thing. There's Kazuma, who's his mentor and father figure. And then Shinji, you know, provided as how would you describe it? There's a word for it. You know, the opposite of a senpai. There's a senpai, and then there's a something. A Gyodai? Something like that. There's, hold Hold on, I'll look it up. Opposite of a senpai. Kohai. Yeah, Kyodai is brother, like blood brother kind of a thing. Senpai is your superior, and Kohai is the opposite of a senpai, the inferior. Like, that sounds like a mean thing to say, but... So, like, he did have characters who kind of filled every role that you would need on a journey of this nature, but he didn't really have quite so much of the screen time. He was, in the beginning, 10 years ago, and he was in there before the funeral. But then after the funeral, you kind of never see Shinji again. And the funeral was like chapter 4, and then he comes back into the plot specifically to die in chapter 10. Or chapter 9. Chapter 10? What chapter are we in? Chapter 10. So, like, he didn't do anything wrong, necessarily, but he just was barely in the game. So it's almost like, oh no. Anyway. Like, Reina is kind of a more tragic death than Shinji, and she dies off-screen, and they just dump her body there. That's kind of a really fucked up note for her character to go out on. We spend way more screen time with Reina and know way more about her story. Even going on the new content they added into Kiwami, with the flashback showing Kiryu getting Yumi's ring, we see nuggets of Reina's story where she's all thirsty for that Nishiki dick. And is part of that love triangle between Kiryu, Yumi, and Nishiki. Tetrahedron. love Tetrahedron. And we get a lot of screen time with Reina. Like, from the instant we start using Serena as a base of operations again, she's in a lot of the game. And the twist of her being an informant for Nishiki, but then feeling bad about it because she realizes that her desire to be important to Nishiki, you're outside of the batting cages and you're practicing your golf swing. Is this foreshadowing? And realizing that she's simping super hard for Nishiki's dick, and that's not the way to find true happiness in this life. You can't just simp for a man, hoping that he'll throw you a pity fuck because you ratted out his brother, and, you know, someone who is important to you in your own life also. Like, you're not gonna find fulfillment like that, Reina, and through seeing Kiryu's quest for justice and his relationship with Haruka, she realizes that and decides to correct, you know, that mistake. And first of all, she goes about it the wrong way. I don't think luring Nishiki back to her bar to kill him with gun was the best way to try and redeem herself. And she kind of fucked it up and ended up dying. So, you know, just a piss poor performance all around. Like, Shinji, you're a terrible double agent. Nishiki knew that you were a double agent the whole time. Nishiki, you fucked up having a double agent to spy on Kiryu, because you really should have thrown her a pity fuck way earlier if you wanted to keep her on your payroll. And Reina, you fucked up. It just a terrible performance, this totally avoidable catastrophe that is everyone else's fault and not Kiryu's at all. Kiryu is standing in the middle here. Like, Kiryu did not have to be involved with what happened at all. Kiryu accomplished absolutely nothing. The only reason Kiryu was involved in that terrible gameplay sequence was so that we, the audience, would find out about it in a way that wasn't just an exposition-heavy cutscene. and had dramatic payoff and gameplay value. Terrible, bad gameplay value, but gameplay value nonetheless. But, like, all of that played out and happened completely incidental to Kiryu's involvement. If Kiryu had not gone to that building, nothing would have been different. Nothing would have changed. Kiryu was completely incidental to everything that happened between Reina, Nishiki, and Shinji. He only showed up to have a sad death scene with Shinji. Who, again, we as the audience kind of don't care about. I mean, the plot of the game is very simple at this point. And, like, it's fine. You can understand, based on what we have seen of their relationship, that Shinji is a pretty important person to Kiryu. But he's not really an important person to the audience. So, you know. What do you do? You skip through this fucking Majima fight. So yeah, kind of a misstep on the story, which I think can be attributed to the fact that this is their first game. It's really their first story in general. Oh hey, look at these two. Did we get payoff for this? I don't remember. Did this happen? Okay, here it is.
おお、田村に青木か。ついに会えたか。
はい、いろいろと話を聞いてました。桐生さん、礼っていうのはこのことだったんですね。
ああ。でもよかったな。田村が生きてて。
はい、桐生さんのおかげでこうして田村さんにも会えて、またいろんな話が聞けますよ。これでしばらくネタにも困らないですしね。
あんまり調子に乗るなよ。図に乗って記事にしすぎたら本当に東京湾に浮かんじまうぜ。
そうだぞ、シャレにならないぞ。はい、気をつけます。本当にありがとうございました。
Okay, so yay, that minor plot point finally got some dramatic payoff. That was a little intermittent. That was a little peppered through the entire game there. Yeah, so I think it can be attributed really to the fact that this is their first game, their first story of this nature, really. So, you know, a bit of a fumble. Like, you see what they wanted to do, but Shinji's death, not quite so much with the dramatic payoff, I think. They do a better job of fulfilling that intention, that purpose that Shinji's character was meant to convey in future games. There are future games where Kiryu has a Kohai, someone who calls him Aniki, you know, that type of character. You know, a Tails. He gets a Tails. He gets himself a Miles, who can fulfill the function of being his sidekick, and then gets a dramatic death with some emotional weight to it near the end of the game. You'll see as we go through the series, there's a lot of elements and plot points and archetypes that kind of get reused and reinterpreted and, like, tried again, so to speak, as the series goes along. Both as a thematic reprise of those elements, like, you know, one of those, it's like poetry, it's like they rhyme kind of things, but in a good way. And also as a way to kind of show how far they've come as developers and storytellers throughout the series, taking something that was in a previous game that maybe didn't work super fantastically in that game, and then trying it again, and seeing how they've improved in implementing it in this new entry. And also, again, just as a thematic reprise, like, hey, this is remember that? It happened again. And which one it is kind of depends on the example we're talking about, the game, how long it's been since the previous game, whether it's supposed to be comedic or dramatic, etc.
Nani?
Here's the reveal. Back at the place where I started. Gotta love sub-stories that do that. You can tell that this is a new sub-story, though, because it's more than just one fight. We have gotten to a total of 3 fights during this one sub-story. So that's how you can tell it's not a sub-story that was in the original game. All the sub-stories in the original game are go to place, get in fight, sub-story done. This one, I believe, is the one which has some dramatic payoff. Oh, wait, no it isn't. I'm thinking of a different one. Still, you can tell that this is a different one, though. Gum burgers. Kiryu, it's not that hard. I think maybe it's supposed to be, like, I think this is a joke that works a lot better in Japanese. I'll bust your nuts. Wait, that doesn't mean what I think it means, does it? I think this is one of those wordplay jokes that works a lot better in Japanese than it does in English. They do their best, though. You can't blame them. You're an asshole. Dodging and getting behind me, exploiting the game's kind of faulty combat mechanics. How dare you, sir? I'll forgive you. Hi! Atateko! Gotta trim that fat. Instead of lifting yourself up, you try and tear others down. That's not the Yakuza way. How dare you besmirch the Yakuza way with this underhanded subterfuge. Oh, Kiryu, you're not gonna give us a nugget of... Oh, there we go. Ah, Kiryu, you can do better than that. Kiryu, you're in the middle of a civil war between no less than 3 different Yakuza families within the Tojo clan who are all run by assholes. Nishiki, Shimano... I guess that's kind of it. Fuck. Okay, so here's a sub-story I always miss every single time I play this fucking game, to the point that I didn't realize that it was in the original game. I thought that this was a new sub-story added for Kiwami. It was not. It is a sub-story that was in the original game, and I just never triggered it. Every time I played the original game, I missed this sub-story. I take only partial responsibility, considering you have to go all the way down here in order to trigger it. I believe. Where the fuck is it? Yeah, I think you have to go into... Yeah, there. First of all, it's not on the map anywhere. I mean, there wasn't a map of that nature in the original game, but... Where do you go to trigger this? Did I... Can I not trigger it right now because the florist is waiting back in front of our hideout? Is that the reason? We have to... The florist has to be chilling in his mansion for this to be triggerable? I think that might be it. Okay. We'll give that a shot later then. Yeah. Well, let's try talking to the florist and see if that triggers it. I don't think it will. No, okay. Yeah, it's probably because the person who gives us the sub-story is the florist, and he's in a main story flagged area right now, so we gotta wait. Well, these are both in the same general location. Isn't this the part... Yeah, I think this is the part where, like, the story kind of goes into a weird little divergence. Well, let's... Oh god, we're gonna get hit with a Majima fight, aren't we? We did not! Hooray! Damn it! Anyway, we'll trigger this main story and then do the sub-story. Mix it up a little bit.
神明はいるか。
ええ、奥にいますよ。
ちょっと合わせてもらうぞ。
こんばんは。私、新明って言います。指名してくれてありがとう。
ああ、俺は桐生だ。
お飲み物は何になさいます？
神明、いきなりですまないが。
はい。何でしょう？
桃源郷の会員証持ってないか。
あなた、なんでそれを？
ちょっと会わなきゃならない奴がいるんだ。だがもう時間がない。
そうですか。でも私からのお願い受けてくれたらお渡しします。
なんだ？
私本当は密入国者なんです。それでこの前警察に捕まりそうになって、このままじゃ絶対に見つかっちゃう。私だけ中国に戻ったら弟が一人ぼっちになるんです。
弟？こっちにいるのか？
はい。父が日本で作った愛人の子です。わけあって今は私と一緒に暮らしているんです。
そうなのか。じゃあ一人でその弟を。
桐生さん、人弁師って知ってます？
人弁師？
この町にいる偽造屋です。絵画の贋作から偽札、偽造パスポートまで何でも偽造できる人。偽の人弁からそう言われているようです。
そこら辺にいるコピー野郎とは違うのか？
はい。その人がすごいのは、裏の戸籍まで完全に作り上げてくれるって噂です。
大したもんだな。
私、ここから外に出ると警察に見つかっちゃう。桐生さん、お願い。人弁士に会って私のパスポートを作ってもらいたいんです。私の代わりに人弁士にお願いしに行ってくれないでしょうか？
いいだろう。俺もそいつに興味がある。
ありがとうございます。本当私嬉しい。
で、そいつはどこにいるんだ？
七福通りのジュエルってお店へ行ってください。そこの彩香ちゃんが窓口しているみたいです。
わかった。
Yeah, kind of a weird little, what do you call that? Little, not a thimble. Not a thimble, like a... Shit. A droplet? Like, you know, like a turkey baster, but it's scientific. Squeegees, one of those little, like, you squeeze it, and then the liquid goes up the tube, like a turkey baster, but it's small, and not in the context of the kitchen. Little dollop of drama, of, like, real-life, actual kind of issues of the red light district exploiting immigrants in the sex trade industry and human trafficking. And it's like, where's this coming from in the 11th chapter in a like a chapter that is not about whatever this is? I don't know if this is the time or the place to be bringing this up. Like, kind of a, okay, let's take a step back here moment. It's not that I want a reward, it's that... it's that I'm incapable of saying no to stupid requests from idiots who can't solve their own problems. That is Kiryu's lot in life.
What?
That's a woman? Not the defense you were hoping it was. That's a woman. You got something to say, tough guy? Look at Kiryu's face.
What?
Just like, I am so done. Everyone that I know is either dead or an asshole. And it's starting to piss me off. Everyone that I know is either dead, dying, or an asshole who is responsible for the former. So, I'm about up to here with you people. With your shenanigans. Yeah, let's go. Do it. Pussy. Pussy! I'm surprised that he actually called someone. That he had someone to call. Kiryu is so done! He's so sick of this bullshit. The fact that this sub-story is happening now at this point in the game is so good. Because this is the perfect time for Kiryu to just be like, I'm done with you, Dishonor on you, Dishonor on your cow, all of you are, none of you are without sin. Fuck off. I have so much other bullshit to be dealing with right now. It's hard for me to remember off the top of my head which sub-stories are new and which ones are not new, but this strikes me as a sub-story which was in the original Yakuza, because what happened in the sub-story? Random chick flagged us down. Oh, that guy's stalking me. Go over to guy. Have a dialogue exchange. Get into one fight. Sub-story over. It feels like a Yakuza 1 sub-story. I said I didn't want a reward, bitch! Wait, what the f... No, okay. That's the same amount of money. I was like, what happened to my money? No, wait, that's right. That's about correct. For once it was not a con. Who'da thunk it? I'm so fucking... I literally just got into a fight with Majima right before... Oh god, I gotta go to the other fucking Hostess Club, too. This is the game's way of going, hey, in case you haven't spent any time doing the Hostess Club gameplay yet, the Hostess Clubs exist, and you should be doing them. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. Please stop. Please stop doing this. Thankfully, there's a minority of hostesses in this game.
綾香はいるか。
いらっしゃいませ。お客様、彩香さんですね。
That's why I fucking said it,
ご
bitch!
指名入りました。
こんばんは、彩香です。ご指名ありがとう。今日はどっかで飲んできたの？
いや、今日はちょっと聞きたいことがあってきたんだが、人弁士ってやつ知らないか？
え？何それ？
社員でキャバやってる新名の代わりに来たんだが。
今初めて聞いたわよ。あ、それ新しいお笑い芸人？
おめえ本当に知らねえのか？
あ、わかった。新しい詐欺師でしょ。違う？もうそんなことより楽しく飲みましょうよ。焼酎でいいかしら？
邪魔したな。
ちょっと、もう帰っちゃうの？お兄さん、これからが楽しみなのに。
お客さん、もうお帰り？
ああ、感情を頼む。
彩香が何か失礼でも？
いや、そういうわけじゃない。
ごめんなさいね。あ、お代は結構ですよ。だって何も飲んでないじゃない。
すまんな。
You should still have to pay for the atmosphere. These bitches is giving me the runaround. There should still be an overhead cost. Ah, skinheads. What the fuck? Ooh. I forgot about this part. I can assure you they did not translate that word as Okama in the original game, in the original release. The game has had, the series has had a long history of having trouble with that subject matter.
その時はたまたま彼氏と待ち合わせしてただけって言ってるでしょ？
ガタガタ抜かすんじゃない！
Jesus.
正直に言え。人弁士って野郎はどこにいる？
Yeah, sisters doing it for themselves. What the fuck? Oh.
ようやく本性を表しやがったか。第三公園がいつもの取引場所だ。おそらくそこに逃げ込んだな。あいつら切り刻んでやる。
So the series has had a long, tawdry history with translating anything having to do with the gay boys and the boys who are girls and stuff like that. Japan in general is just not a culture that you know, those concepts translate well between the cultures. The Western view of that stuff is very different from the Japanese view of that stuff in general. Although they're starting to, like, it's starting to come around. I mean, we had a hostess in this game who was like, yeah, straight up lesbian over here. And, I think there's a sub-story in Yakuza 3 where, there's a post-transition trans woman who Kiryu has, like, an actually kind of insightful, like, discussion about the subject matter with. And it was in the original game. It was in the original release. That was not something they added as part of, like, a localization thing. It was a pretty legit, straightforward translation of that conversation. That was also the game, though, which had a sub-story dedicated to Kiryu being chased around by a transvestite. Like, that's the thing. It's like, what would even the appropriate word to use be? Because a lot of Japanese media tends to use tranny and cross-dresser interchangeably, even though those aren't the same fucking thing. Passporto. So you take that history, and then you also include the fact that you need to translate that into English, and take this thing that just does not culturally translate and translate it linguistically, and you get weirdisms. You get weird things. That don't really hold up well to scrutiny in retrospect. So, okay, so Okama is a Japanese slang for gay man, particularly in reference to very effeminate gays. The word can also mean drag queen. It comes from the Edo period slang for anus. Using the word kettle for butt seems to be an idea borrowed from the Portuguese. It is not always considered insulting, and drag performers will sometimes even use it in reference for themselves. Okage, the burnt rice that sometimes sticks to the bottom of a cooking pot, is sometimes used to refer to women that like to hang out with gay or effeminate men. So there's a Japanese slang for fag hag, and it's Okage. That's actually kind of a funny linguistic, like, history explanation of where the word comes from. But anyway, so if you see them using the word Okama in these new translations, these new age Yakuza translations, they're referring to the gay boys. And it's always kind of ambiguous as to whether or not they're referring to, like, drag queens, actual, like, homosexual dudes who happen to be on the fruitier, on the effeminate side of things, or what you would also see as translated as being a transvestite. And I think, like, it kind of feels like both a fuck it, this is a Japanese thing that doesn't really have a straightforward translation into English, so we're just gonna leave the word untranslated, fuck it, and an admission that the localizers have no fucking idea what is what. Whenever that term gets brought up, they don't know. They don't know if it's being said as a derogative, like the characters we just beat up were likely saying it as a derogatory way. It seems likely that they were saying that fucking Okama in the same way you would have someone say that fucking tranny or that faggot. And it seems like, and they're like, yeah, fuck it, we don't know. We don't know what context. Leave it untranslated. It's accurate, it's preserving the cultural difference, and it's sidestepping the issue of needing to translate and deal with, you know, the sensitive subject matter of trying to quote-unquote localize a difference that goes beyond simple language differences. So, like, that was kind of a throwaway example, but it's all over the series, because dude looks like a lady is all over the series. It pops up all the time, because, I don't know if you knew this, but there's a lot of prostitution going on in Japan. And a lot of it's gay prostitution. So they're just like, fuck it, it's in the game. Like, you gotta include it, because it's, you know, authentic. They're obviously, in this game about the red light district of Tokyo, they're gonna include that shit, because that's what's happening in real life, and you want to be authentic. And it really seems like, fuck it, it's just in there because that's, you know, you look out the window of the red light district, and that's what you're gonna see walking down the street, so you gotta put it in the game. Not really putting any deeper thought into it. And while personally, I look back on the older releases of the Yakuza games in English, and it's amusing to me to look back on those translations and see how blunt they were, like describing the champion district as having a tranny bar and stuff like that. Or a character referring to herself as a washed-up old tranny and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, that wouldn't fly now. Ooh, you would not get away with translating it that way nowadays. Ooh, that is a relic of its time. And I don't say that in like a, you know, the problematic issues of the past. I'm saying it's interesting to me to see how the approach of localizing those concepts has changed over time. Because now the approach is, fuck it, leave it untranslated. Okama. Don't know what that is? Fuck it, it's a Japanese thing. Like, get over it, basically, right? And honestly, that is my preferred approach. I touched on this in other videos, but if ever there's a thing of like, well, how are you gonna localize this? I say, fuck it, leave it untranslated. Like, there's no reason to have to force this word or this terminology that really does not have an appropriate one-to-one English translation and try and force it into a word that might not convey the same intent or the same meaning. It's like in 13 Sentinels, how they just say they're kaiju. Fuck it. We're not gonna bother translating it into giant monsters. They leave it at kaiju and say, well, we will explain what a kaiju is. A kaiju is a giant monster, just like Godzilla. You know what Godzilla is? Now you know what a kaiju is. End of discussion. Just now we all know and accept what the term kaiju means, and we'll just use that from now on.
譲ってしまったんです。
Which always makes it funny to me when then they turn around and translate something like tokusatsu. I'm still going off of 13 Sentinels as an example here. They translate tokusatsu. They, like, a line of dialogue where the character says, oh, this was an old tokusatsu movie. And that's what they're saying in Japanese. They're saying, oh, this old kaiju flick. It was a tokusatsu film from back in the day. And they translate that as, this movie was heavy on the special effects. Because tokusatsu does mean special effects, but that's not that's not really what it means. Right? You know what I mean? It's a genre name. Tokusatsu is a genre. And movies like Godzilla and TV shows like Super Sentai, aka Power Rangers, and Kamen Rider fall into the genre of tokusatsu media. To me, I think there's more value in leaving those terms untranslated and just have an asterisk or some kind of footnote explaining what it means so that we understand what that word means and can apply that context every time it's used in the future. I mean, I don't see why Japanese media has to deal with this all the time. Where you're like, how do you translate yokai? We don't know how to translate yokai. Quick, translate it into goblin or demon or whatever. And it's like, you know, we leave rendezvous untranslated, right? We leave hors d'oeuvre or deja vu. We leave those words untranslated. We understand what these words mean, even though they are not English. No one translates rendezvous point to the location that we will be meeting up later at the prearranged time. But we understand that that's what the word rendezvous means. So we just use the term rendezvous, even though it's not an English word. And in a way, trying to translate rendezvous or other such words into an English equivalent causes you to lose a little bit of what that word means in the sense of what goes beyond the literal translation. So personally, I would rather they leave as much untranslated as possible. Localize it into English, but leave it untranslated. What does Okama mean? Oh, it's a slang term for homosexuals in Japan. And it's applied in a wide context. Its usage is applied in a wide way depending on the context. And whatever the context is kind of left up to you to figure out. Depending on, you know, when and where it's being said. I'm not giving you money. How dare you? Yep, so never say yes to giving up money unless there's no other way to progress. Yeah, so kind of a throwaway line to go into this huge diatribe about about translation practices and stuff like that. But we're almost to the end of the game, and like I said, it's something that comes up a lot all throughout the series. So it's worth talking about, I think. I think that is the appropriate way to handle it. Just fuck it, leave it untranslated. They'll figure out what it means. It doesn't have to be in English for us to know what the word means. I do think moments like that in the game, kind of like roadblocks with you gotta give up the money in order to progress, are kind of opportunities for the game to be like, go do some sub-stories for a little bit. You don't have at least 300,000 yen to throw around. Go do some sub-stories. You need to do some sub-stories and get enough money. There were 2 sub-stories within the last chapter in this one, where we would get 300,000 yen as a reward for doing the sub-story. I'm hoping I can ignore this. And I can't. Okay. I'm gonna skip this over, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, we're skipping this. Ignore everything that's happening on the screen right now. Yeah, so we're not going to talk about any of that, and we're going to ignore it, and you're going to pretend it didn't happen, because it's Kiwami content that was added, and it's Majima Everywhere related, so that means it was automatically bad. So, moving on.